right, welcome to this week's Deal Structure Sunday with no stranger, Mr. Brian O'Neill. Welcome, Brian.
It's good to be back, Chris. Looking forward to chat with you.
Yeah, so a little context, because as always, we might have new viewers, and even for the old crony viewers, well, the veterans. So a couple things here, guys. Brian has been a High Six associate since, gosh, November of 19, Brian? Or no, that's when you started QLS.
December. Yeah, that's why November of 19 was QLS. So I made my first dial December 16th of 2019. So we're coming up on 3 years since I first got on the phone.
Brian kind of knows his metrics, which is awesome. That's another whole story. All right. So Brian went from immersion to High Six, which is exactly his plan. And then at the QLS live event, frankly, most of the public doesn't know, Brian, that we have the Chairman's Club level. It's not on the site. It never will be on the site. It's a private invite only. And Brian is one of 5. It's really 4. There's a couple. So one of 4 entities that are in the Chairman's Club, which is working closely with me, my dream team, a couple masterminds per year, in addition to everything else the High Six does. And they don't share splits. They keep all their deals. So it's invite only. It's not cheap, but that's out there. So that's probably the first time I said it on YouTube. All right, Brian, let's do this. Let's jump to the deal structure sheet and dive into some numbers here, because this is Brian's first sub-2 deal after doing many sandwiches. Is that accurate?
This is my first one. Yeah. And it definitely, you'll see here, it definitely isn't straightforward. So there's a lot of moving parts to it, but I'm excited to share with everyone. This is a super deal.
I love it. All right. So let's just start the basics, and you can dictate where it goes if I forget stuff, because usually I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's the deal type we said is a sub-2.
It's a sub-2 with an owner financing component, because the seller has equity.
We got a combo. Sweet. Good lessons in this one then. I'd have pen and paper out, Wicked Smart Community, for sure. The source of this one, not only the source, Brian, but a little background, like how'd you find it? How long did it take? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it was the source was an expired, and not to be long-winded here, the seller was open to it from day one, but he had to go through what he had to go through. Like, I needed time. It probably took maybe 3 months before we inked the deal, and I went to his house 2 times, to meet with them. So he had to feel comfortable. But he had a house that he wanted. He had a house that he paid for about 90 minutes away. He wanted to move there. He wanted more room, and he had another house that he had sold. And this home was just kind of an in-between, and he didn't really need it. Couldn't sell it conventionally. He had thought about renting it, but didn't want to be a landlord. So we went through a few months of back and forth, and I was just constantly in front of him, following up. And when he was ready, it didn't take long at all to put the deal together.
So is it more, it sounds like it was more like the warm and fuzzies, like kept asking you questions, you kept asking him, and just kind of danced a little bit? Is that like legit?
It was that. And then it was to the point where he said, okay, all of my options are exhausted. Like, I didn't get the result that I wanted, which was selling conventionally. Yeah. I don't want to rent. And I know this guy, Brian, I've been talking to him, and I'm ready to go. I trust him.
Love it. Okay. Now, there's no term on the sub-2, and just I'm saying that like everybody should know, but if you're new to these videos, when we buy a property sub-2, the beauty is we do whatever we want with it long term. But Brian tacked on an owner financing portion here. We'll talk about the numbers in a second. Is there a term to the owner financing portion?
The owner financing, the equity portion is 10 years. So I have 10 years to pay him his equity.
That's awesome. Jeez, 120 months on the equity. We'll talk about the equity. Well, let's go there next. The debt that you took over sub-2?
The debt is $140,000 at 3.725%, which is amazing.
Okay, so we gotta hammer this. We're in a market, folks, where our 50-year average interest rate is 7.7, and we're not even there yet, and people are freaking out. But you don't have to freak out. You can buy homes like this exact deal and get rates in the 2, 3s, and 4s for the next, gosh, you can do it for the next 5 years, however long rates are up, you can still be getting lower rates. It's awesome. Okay. Equity.
Total equity is $74,000.
So question, when he was messing around on the market, Brian, what was he on for? Because this combination is like what, 214? Yeah.
214. He was on for a little bit higher. I think he was on for 219. And so, I mean, the guy got his number.
Yeah.
I get him to his number. He's just got to wait for the equity. Now there's the equity. We could talk about how we structured that, but he's getting the bulk of it. He got some up front. The bulk of it he's getting in the 10, on or before 120 months.
Well, let's talk about the 74. So he's getting most of it on or before 120, but did you insinuate that he's getting a little bit of it over the time?
Yeah, when we closed, we gave him some up front, and then he gets. I have to pay him a whopping $1,200 a year, which is interest only. I'm sorry, principal only.
Principal only.
$1,200 a year for 10 years, and then he gets the balance. When we cash out.
And how much did he get up front?
20,000.
So we do cash here. We broke the mold.
Mm-hmm.
But
we did.
But all the 1,200 and all the 20 is all principal. So it's just a matter of you deciding if these paydays were worth it. And we'll see in a minute.
You will.
I love it. What did we sell this baby for?
Sold it. Put a buyer in it just a few days ago for. We sold it for 260,000.
260 from 214.
Yep.
Love it. All right, let's go through the deposit from the buyer, but let's pause because we're not going to do an overtime on this. We're doing an all inclusive here. The buyer, what's the back? Like, what's the makeup? Why'd they need this or want this?
Yeah, buyer credit isn't established. So younger couple, they have a family, and they were, again, look like a lot of the buyers that we work with. This is a first time home, in that range, 260.
Yeah.
They're looking to make the move from renting to buying. The income is there. The down payment was there. It was just a matter of establishing their credit so that they can get a loan.
Okay, so pretty standard, either seasoning or credit repair. This was seasoning, really. Okay,
correct.
Total down payment, and then we'll talk about if it was overtime or upfront.
Yes, the initial down payment the total down payment is 10%, 26,000. The initial down payment was 8,000 plus the first month's rent, which is 2,057.
8,000 at close.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's explain. Can you explain for the viewer? I don't care if they've seen a bunch. That sometimes this can be confusing if you're not in our community. So what's first month's rent? Why do we get it? How do we get it?
Correct. Well, mortgages are paid in arrears. So when you pay your mortgage on December 1st, you're paying for the month of November. So when we place a buyer in the home December 1st, they're paying in advance. We're not paying the seller's mortgage for
Until
November.
January.
They live there. Yeah. Correct.
Love it. And that was how much? Sorry.
2,057.
Okay. So again, clarification for the viewer, the 2,057 goes in Brian's pocket. It does not get credited when this buyer cashes out. Why? Because it's just a lease payment they made. The 8,000 is going to, and then where's the rest of the 18 grand coming in?
We have 2 installments at tax time, right? So when they get their tax return, tax refund back, they'll contribute a portion there. And then I think in June each year, they're putting another deposit down until they get to the 26 grand.
Okay.
Now, side note, this is a house that I own, so I intend on getting them to the owner financing route.
Okay, this is great. So before we go through the math, which is already going to be phenomenal, Brian can at any time he wants, frankly, say to them, hey, good news. Instead of going the bank route after you painfully thought you were going that route and you got yourself ready, congrats, I can owner finance you now. Brian's not going to charge points and fees and all that crap. Probably not. Did you tell them that yet, or did you leave that as a carrot later?
When my attorney went to go make copies of the documents, I dangled that carrot in front of them and their eyes lit up.
Yeah, always. Yeah. Did you, when you dangled it, did you say any criteria, like if you make sure you're current on all or get your deposit up or anything? Yeah,
I basically told him, I said, hey, look, I just want to let you know this. We have the ability to finance you. If you guys make your payments for a year and don't miss it on time every month and get your down payment up to a certain percentage. I didn't say what. I said to a certain percentage. I have the ability, so you never have to go to the bank.
Great. Brian can do whatever he wants on this deal. For the viewer to know, what we typically say to them is similar to what he did. You got to stay on time for a year, and you got to get your deposit up to 20%. The good news is no rush. I'm not going anywhere. And then because 20% for Brian to do the paperwork and do a wrap and do an owner finance, it's a little bit of work, but well worth it if he's got 20% down instead of 10. So all good. Let's look at the numbers then. The monthly payment to the bank on the underlying 140 grand debt.
$1,312.
1312, and that goes directly to the bank. Brian does not pay the past seller ever, even in a lease, but certainly not in a sub two. How much we getting? We're getting 2057.
2057 from the buyer. Yep.
Okay, I didn't know all your numbers. I knew roughly, but this is a really good spread for a $200,000 house.
It's amazing. And, it's, the viewers might be seeing that's like, oh, that's crazy. He's gouging. No, number one, that's below market rent. And number two, if someone bought this house right now at today's rates, they'd be paying right around that number.
Yeah. This is where the higher rates actually, we're helping the buyer, but the higher rates help us because the monthly cost is what it is. You're going to go get a mortgage.
Right.
And man, your owner financing, Brian, you can owner finance this at 6.725 and have that spread on top of these paydays we're going over. This is cool. All right.
It is.
What's the cash flow there then? Exactly.
$745 a month, and over the 100, let's do it over the 120 months. I plan to keep it. That's $89,400.
89.4 just on payday 2. We already up above have payday 1 at 26 to 26 count to 2057, I imagine.
No, it doesn't. That's just their deposit. Yeah, that would be that. So that'd be,
so we're at 28. Sweet. All right, let's go to price premium. So I don't have to do the math. It's like what?
46
grand. We got to give them credit for their 26, right?
We do.
Oh, sorry. I'm jumping ahead.
Pay down.
Pay down is what?
Yeah, pay down now, and this is going to, obviously increase over time, but it's $238 a month. I want to make sure you explain because you and I do it like second nature, but what we're using 238 because we're doing some math here and projecting, but reality is what? Yeah, the reality is the way the loans are amortized. As time goes on, you pay more in principal and less in interest every month. Loans are front end interest loaded. So let's just say at year 7, that 238 could be, whatever, $350, $400.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but
so this is conservative.
Very conservative. So over the 10 years, that comes out to $28,560.
28,560, and then we got to give them credit for the 26 they paid throughout the term. And then your cash out just on 3 is what?
48,560.
It's crazy, Brian. I don't think you were on the call. I think you had this closing when I was on the call with the other high 6, and Rick showed us a deal, and we did a deal like this on the high 6 call, and he said, "Yeah, I don't know if you want to do this. It's not really a big 3 paydays," and it was like 58 grand all 3 paydays because our community's so used to these killer deals, and they all just laughed at him. Then he kind of caught himself. All right, so the total profit on this is how much? All 3 paydays.
Total profit is 166,017.
That's if you go 10 years and don't own a finance them for another 10.
Yeah, that's correct.
You know what I'd be interested to know, and we'll leave this as a cliffhanger. Run the amortization schedule at 6.7 side by side with the underlying loan, and at the end of even 15 years, see what the 2 payoffs are. Never mind the spread, and not, just look at those 2 payoffs out and see what you're adding to this. You're probably adding like 50 grand, which is crazy. You bought the house for 214. You're probably going to be around 214 in profit.
Yeah, which is amazing, right? To think you just think that can't happen. I did do that because we talked about this deal at QLS. I hadn't sold it, and I was very conservative on my numbers, and it was still 144,000 all 3 paydays. But because the monthly, we got a little bit higher on the monthly, it turned out to be 166.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. All right. So are there any other nuances or lessons, Brian, if a new or seasoned person's watching that they can maybe glean, or do you think we hit it?
Yeah, I think the lesson that I learned here, and I talk to the community all the time about it, is that, and you've mentioned this to me many times, and in front of the community, is that your timeline is not their timeline, right? And I just took the mindset of being patient and waiting and letting this guy go through what he needed to go through. I knew it was a good deal. I knew he trusted me. I knew he wanted to do it. He just wasn't ready. And I remember when I knew you do this long enough, you start to get a feel for when the deal's going to go. He texts a lot. He was texting back and forth, and I don't know, I think it was a Sunday or something. And I normally don't check my messages, but I checked my CRM, and he had just sent me a message and said, "Hey, how are you?" Like, that was his message. How are you? And I knew he was ready. I knew I was going to get the deal. We agreed, like, 2 days later, we signed the agreement.
Love it. Love it. Now, did you,
Yeah.
were contingent upon a buyer? Remind me. Oh, no.
No,
You bought it.
because of
Okay.
this, right? I in my position, I closed. The guy had to move, and I said, I'll close in 30 days. And then I think it probably took me maybe 45 days to find a buyer.
So did you make one payment, or did the calendar work in your favor?
I made a payment. I made two. I made a payment at closing, right? Because it was
Yeah.
the first. I said, "Hey, I'll make your payment," and then I made another one. But again, I got it from the buyer anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, it's awesome.
like, this month's payment came from the buyer.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Good stuff. Brian, I'll wrap up with this thought. I want everybody to be at the summit event, the live event. Even though you were in the community for a little while because of COVID, you hadn't come to a live event. You came as a coach once, but seeing the whole live event in the ballroom, I just like your thoughts to them. And first, I'll give them a link. I want you guys to come to the Wicked Smart Summit. It's wickedsmartsummit.com. However, I want to give you a link for 50% off. And Brian will tell you why you should be there, because I can scream and tumble in the face and you're probably sick of hearing from me. But go to smartrealestatecoach.com/50 off for 50% off. If I didn't do that, Brian, why should they be at the event?
Oh, so many yeah, it was interesting because that was the first time I think I'd been in any type of live event since COVID. So it was great to be around all the people that you see on our Zoom calls and in the community. But I mean, just the fact. So besides the camaraderie, that was tremendous. Being able to literally rub elbows. I'm talking about, like 2 inches away from folks like Peter Taunton and David Nurse and Dan Rouse, and the entire community. I mean, you just can't put a price tag on it. You just can't. So get your butt to the event, as you always say.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, congrats, buddy. If and when we turn this into owner financing in 2 years, we got to come back on for sure. But congrats, and let's get many more of these under wraps. And for the viewers, let's see you live and in person at the event. As I always say, I literally promise you'll have a great experience. And if for any reason you don't think you do, come up to us. We'll give you money back on the spot. Like, we don't want you there if you don't want to be there. But I guarantee you'll consider it time well spent. So, Brian, thanks again, buddy, and congrats on all these crazy deals.
Yeah, thanks for helping me. I couldn't have pulled this. I wouldn't have been in a position to do this type of a deal, 2 or 3 years ago, for sure. I needed to learn. I needed help. So thank you.
Well, teamwork, you're welcome, and you're helping people do it now. So we're spreading the prosperity.